After Loki episode 5, it is all about that Kang, as there were several Easter eggs that seem to hint at the coming of Kang the Conqueror, something that fans have long been talking about when it comes to the Loki series. And man, the odds went way up on Kang actually showing up after a few things that happened in the episode yesterday. So let's get into this, Nerd Avengers. Here is mostly what it is all about. This is the shot from the very end. Oh, I guess I should say spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. This is the shot from the very end of Loki episode 5 when, after defeating the crazy smoke monster thing, which is called Alioth, I believe, that thing, after they defeat that, this portal opens and they see this castle. This castle is, by all the signs of the narrative, this castle is where the person that's truly behind the TVA lies. So definitely let us know, who do you think is the man or woman or person or robot in the castle? Who do you think's the thing that's behind all of this? Again, there's a lot of evidence that it's Kang, and one of the pieces of evidence for it being Kang is the fact that Alioth, this character Alioth the Usurper in Marvel Comics, which is literally name dropped, that's what the smoke monster thing is. This thing has all sorts of ties to Kang the Conqueror, to Chronopolis, to different time periods. A lot of the weird stuff that you get in Marvel Comics around Kang, particularly around Immortus, has to do with this Alioth character. So again, a lot of actual evidence for Kang, which is great, because I know people were out there saying, like, dude, there's not enough evidence at all. Really, the only evidence is that Ravonna Renslayer being the person that's Kang's lover in the comics. That was obviously a reference to it. And just the fact that time travel and all of this stuff is happening. The TVA has, had run-ins with Kang before, as well as the Timekeepers. But until episode 5, there was no direct actual teases or evidence. Now there is, and again, there's that crazy castle, which a lot of people think is either a place where Kang is controlling everything, or that is Chronopolis, or something to that effect. Now, I also want to talk about the other possibility that King Loki is somehow in charge of all of this, and I want to talk about this article here written by Charles Murphy. It says here, Loki episode 5, The Man in the Castle, and he's talking about Loki and the different theories that they have, saying here that at the advice of Mobius, it's time to change, and in the episode's final minutes, it sure seems like that's what they're doing. Loki gives a long overdue embrace to his best bro Mobius, and willingly takes Sylvie's hand and lets her lead the way in an effort to reveal who the big bad behind the TVA truly is by enchanting Alioth. It seems like there are only two prevailing hypotheses among fans as who the man in the castle is going to turn out to be. Either a version of Kang the Conqueror or a sort of old man version of Loki. Let's play out the evidence and support those claims and see how it goes. So he begins with King Loki. It's a show named Loki, telling a story about variants of Loki, so it's no surprise that fans have come to expect to find another version of the character behind the curtain of the TVA. It's true. Despite a lot of the Kang evidence, I still actually think that it's possible that a version of Loki is behind it. Today's episode probably brought us a total of maybe 15 to 20 different variants that we've seen on screen, but fans are holding tight to the idea that we might see one more in next week's final episode. But it does make sense for another Loki to be pulling the strings and protecting the sacred timeline, or rather he asks, does it make sense? Streamlining things to avoid chaos seems like most un-Loki thing that I can imagine, but we did just see a few Lokis undergo some pretty cathartic moments in episode 5, albeit as a result of a bunch of Lokis doing very Loki things. So maybe what we're dealing with here is another Loki, a superior version, who has done it all and seen it all and made his way through the wasteland, built himself a fancy castle, wrangled up Alioth, and created the TVA to keep other Lokis from becoming successful by pruning them from other timelines. If that were the case, would that superior Loki really want to risk bringing all those variants close to his castle? Would it be in his best interest? As Grant's Loki said, Lokis are survivors. So a superior Loki, would know this about Lokis and might not want to risk it. So that's pretty interesting, a good point. I can tell Charles is kind of hesitant to go in to the Loki theory. I think he's pretty sold on Kang. And here is sort of his take on Kang. He says here, before the show even debuted, rumors indicated Loki might feature a potential appearance from Kang. Jonathan Majors was cast as the Master of Men and set to appear in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but that fact, he was cast 10 months before the start of production on that film, but while production on Loki, which filmed under an LLC titled Limbo Productions, really backed up those rumors. Prior to the show's release, Disney revealed that Gugu Mbatha Raw's character, wow, I'm really bad at pronunciations, but is that not Gugu? Is that not how you say that? Her character to be Ravonna Renslayer, a Marvel Comics character with deep ties to Kang that have extended into other mediums such as Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes and the Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 video game. And while today's episode certainly seemed to indicate that Ravonna has not been in on the con and not in league with whomever is running it, that actually makes a stronger case for it to be Kang, because their relationship started off on a very rocky ground after Kang conquered her father's empire. It's unclear what's truly up with Ravonna. Is she a variant that many Kangs have fallen in love with? But that's not the point of this exercise. The presence here, running the TVA, a place outside of time and space, helps steer things towards Kang being the man in the castle. Journey into Mystery introduced fans to Alioth, described as the guard dog to the man in the castle. Alioth doesn't have anywhere near as long and twisted of a history in the comics as Kang does, but what history does have is closely tied to Kang. We saw Alioth can basically destroy anything and everything it touches, which fits with its comic book counterpart, which originated in temporal limbo. There's that word again. A location ruled by Kang. So we have a little bit of an original take on the character here, but it is another character which leads us down a road that ends with Kang sitting there, hands on his hips, waving hello like Forrest Gump. Alioth's job is to go around and clean up the void, wastelands where variants who have been pruned and their realities they've altered go. The principles of the void are cool because they follow science. Neither energy nor matter can be created or destroyed, and so these beings and objects are transported to a new place where the variants become food for Alioth. But what about the objects? Alioth doesn't seem to like concrete, and thankfully he didn't eat one of the episode's biggest Easter eggs and another neon arrow pointing in the direction of Kang, the Quang Enterprises Tower. Quang Tower is honestly a pretty obscure reference, and the tower itself made only the briefest of appearances in the episode. However, it's another big hint at Kang. In the comics, Quang Tower came into play 500 years in the future during the 3 issues of Avengers Ultron Forever series. The tower is overseen by the CEO of Quang Enterprises, Mr. Griffin, who was just another one of Kang's alters. As mentioned above, it's such an obscure reference and passes so quickly, but it's another great reason to think the original Kangster is the man in the castle. The final piece of evidence for the man in the castle being Kang is the castle itself. Kang is nothing if not a modest man who ruled temporal limbo for a quaint tri-leveled named Tenebrae, or Castle Limbo. The version of Kang who lived here went by the name Immortus and spent his days shepherding the timeline by pruning variants, mostly by himself, to make sure it all ended in peace and tranquility. If that sounds vaguely familiar to you, it means you've been paying attention to the previous episodes of Loki, where they described that as the job of the TVA. And so Charles finishes off talking about WandaVision and how this is a different situation than WandaVision. And I totally get why he said that. And, you know, look, he is getting a lot of flack, and a lot of people out there are like, no, man, it's not going to be Kang. I'm getting a lot of that, too. I'm sure a lot of YouTubers or people that are talking about this stuff are, again, because of WandaVision. But I don't know, man. A lot of freaking evidence that Kang the Conqueror is going to be the one. I still think, of course, it's possible they do whatever they want with the show, and they could ultimately rug pull us and set it up as something weird that we all think is Kang, but it ends up being something else, and it's really weird and whatever. But it's interesting that Limbo was in the LLC name. It's interesting that Jonathan Majors was cast as Kang and announced way before Quantumania was filming, but at the time that Loki was filming. That's very interesting as well. So I think a lot of signs point to Kang the Conqueror in episode 6. So let's get hyped. Let's get ready for some gang. And even if we don't get Kang, we got Throg, and that's honestly all I need to be a happy Marvel fan. Make sure you check out our other live streams where we're going to be talking a lot about Loki and the implications it has on the MCU moving forward. We have a ton of different live streams with different personalities coming in and giving their takes, so check that stuff out. We will have some clipped videos on this channel as well. And consider checking out our Loki-inspired merchandise, which is only available for one more week. It is only available while Loki is airing. And as I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.